Xbox Series S review. We're going to review the Xbox Series S in 2023. I've had my Xbox Series S for a long time now, and I have a lot of context that I can give to you if you're deciding to buy an Xbox Series S or you just want to hear an honest opinion and an honest review on the console. Let's dive right in to this content in this podcast, the A Video Game Podcast. The A-grade video game content for you in podcast form from Anthony Allen, your host. So let's talk about the Xbox Series S. So as you know, I have a YouTube channel where I upload content, and most of the gaming content is Xbox Series S content. We're going to talk about the price here, how it performs, and a lot more, so you can find more information on this console. So of course, the Xbox Series S is what I play on, and it's where I play most of my games online and offline, so there is some offline gaming. The price at the moment in the UK is around £250, and that is from the main retailers. This is discarding all of the second-hand pre-owned Xbox Series S consoles. This is the main price of the console, but you also do have some price points where you can break down that price. For example, with Klarna, there are a pay deal that you can take, and you can break down the $250 into installment payments, and this is something that Microsoft actually pushed forward in its initial release and is still available today. So you can have a price plan when buying your Xbox Series S, which really does make it cost efficient for those of you that are getting into the next generation of gaming at a cheaper price. Not only is the console cheaper than its other version of the console, the Xbox Series X, but of course it's also cheap as a console on a whole in terms of how much consoles usually cost. So it's quite cheap, and not to mention the size. So with, of course, a lower price, you want to know that you're still getting the quality of next generation gaming and everything in which the gaming industry has on offer at the moment in terms of the games that are available. Now, the exact same games that are available on the Xbox Series X are going to be available on the Xbox Series S. This is the next series generation of gaming consoles from Microsoft in a form of an Xbox. So it's literally just a few performance differences and a few hardware differences from the Xbox Series X, but you're getting those same games. Now, in terms of performance, we have a lot to talk about in terms of performance. There are a variety of games, and these games perform differently, and of course, depending on your setup and what setup you have with your Xbox Series S, you will be able to get a different type of performance. What do I mean by this? I'm going to break this down. Don't forget, I'll also be giving you context as to how I've been gaming on my Xbox Series S and also what I think. So going into more of how the Xbox Series S performs with individual games. Let's take some of the games that I have right in front of me at the moment while recording this podcast. At the moment, right in front of me, I have FIFA 23, Forza Horizon 5, Fortnite, and Apex Legends, just to mention just a few of the games that I currently have on the console. Now, when I'm installing these games, there is a size compromise because this is a cheap version of the Xbox Series X, and it's a smaller version with less of the hardware. Of course, this is where the compromise was also met, and that was on storage. Now, with the storage of the console, of course, you've got less storage, but you can buy an expansion. Now, the expansion card is worthwhile purchasing because I fill up my internal storage very quickly when I'm downloading games, and of course with how I game as part of my profession and what I do. So with the storage expansion card, you do get additional space, and this does allow you to download more to your console without being really hurt about that space. But what I tend to find that I am doing is, of course, when I'm adding add-ons to games, for example, Batman Arkham Knight, I have add-ons to that game. When I'm adding these add-ons to games and I'm compromising on space even more, what tends to happen is some things get installed on my expansion card and other things get installed on my internal, and this can be for the same exact game. For example, if I have an add-on to, let's go for my games library right now because I have quite a big games library for an Xbox Series S gamer. For example, Tomb Raider, Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Now, there are add-ons to that game that I have downloaded. Some of the add-ons to games at this point in time in the gaming industry are actually internal to the game. What do I mean by this? What I mean by this is some of the digital add-ons to games sometimes are actually in the cloud saves of that game. So for example, if you have an asset that you might have as a perk, for example in Apex Legends, because Apex Legends is predominantly an online cloud based game, most of the things that you will download as a perk, maybe from the Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, sometimes you get your perks, and I will download these perks, which are actually add-ons to the game, and you have to enter your code into the item shop, into the store, in order to download that to be added into the game. Most of the time it's a weapon charm, by the way. This will actually be a digital asset that is added into the game files. So it's not actually an add-on which is added, but I will double check this right now because I do have it in front of me. So I have my Apex Legends that I play on Xbox Series S. Keep in mind it's a cloud-based game, just like it is with Fortnite and other Battle Royale games. They tend to put most of their storage capabilities in the cloud. Of course, when you're making so many different changes and things to games like that, it's going to be necessary to do so, otherwise you're going to take up a lot of space. Apex Legends at this current moment in time is on my expansion card, and the space that it takes up is 60 gigabytes. If I press into this file right now, I can get more information on the file. So at this current moment in time, if I go into my Apex Legends, sorry, I've just got an update as well. So literally in the middle of me actually looking at that file just now, it's just given me a notice which says, let's update. The size of the update is 613 megabytes. Now this is an update for the Xbox operating system. You have an Xbox operating system. I'm just going to press this now to start the update. When you have automatic updates on your Xbox Series S console, what will happen is sometimes it will completely interrupt what you are doing. So just like that is a perfect example of literally what just happened there. So I've been going through looking at something on my Xbox console, and because I have automatic updates for my Xbox operating system, it has interrupted what I was doing and what I was talking about with you guys. So I'm going to wait for that to do right now. And of course, you need internet in order for that to take place. So if you're not connecting your Xbox Series S to the internet, what you will find is you might run into some bugs that have been solved. So that is just a modern gaming change in terms of Xbox gaming. So that's going to happen on your Xbox Series X as well as it happening on your Xbox Series S. Now, do these updates have any size issues on the Xbox Series S? No, you won't have any size issues in terms of the updates for your operating system, because this is an internal update to your operating system, and that space, as far as I'm aware, is already calculated in your internal storage, which doesn't really go against the storage that you would use to save games. So in terms of your operating system updating, you won't really have to worry about that, and they're always quite small anyway. There's never really an operating system update that you get for your Xbox Series S, which is like a crazy amount of gig. That is not something that you will have with your Xbox Series S console. But one of the biggest things, other than price, of course, and how the price is broken down, and you can have your price plans available. For example, in the UK, like I've mentioned earlier, you have Klarna, which allows you to have a price plan available for your Xbox Series S. That was very popular during its initial release, and it's still available now. You still can do things like that. But one of the things that was a main issue for gamers when they were getting started with the Xbox Series S is the storage. Now, as you may already know, it's not as much of an issue to cause people not to want to get started with the console. This is because the Xbox Series X, if I look at the price for the Xbox Series X right now in 2023, the Xbox Series X price is currently still up there at £449.99. Now that is quite a lot to fork out for a new console when you're unsure of what you want to do with your console. Now what do I mean by this? The majority of gamers, when they're getting into a new console, they are going from word of mouth or what they've seen online, for example on YouTube, Twitch or other streaming platforms or services. You're seeing games and you're seeing the quality of those games from those platforms, and what tends to happen when you're doing that is you might not actually see the full game quality. This is because that gamer might be playing with the setup that doesn't give you the full capabilities of the console, but not only that, it's when it's actually processed on the platform as well. So say I make a Xbox Series S gameplay and I upload that. Now my setup is quite good, and what I do is at a high quality in terms of what I'm able to deliver deliver in terms of gameplay. So of course you're seeing most, if not, I would say like 95% of the quality that you can get out of the Xbox Series S. The only reason it's not slightly higher is because I don't have a 4K setup, and because of course getting 4K footage is a lot more difficult in terms of, you know, compromising on space and storage. So when you're storing a 4K footage clip and it's going to be over an hour long, you know this is going to take up quite a lot of room. And the generation in which we're in at the moment has not really moved forward to make sort of 4K gaming in terms of being able to share it online as something that's really, you know, not still for the PC genre. It's still sort of like a PC genre thing. You need a quite a big storage space and a big PC with a huge amount of loads of fans and a big processing core and a massive graphics card that's going to cost you a lot in order to get yourself some high quality 4K footage constantly at a long period of time. In order to upload that, it's going to cost you. There's still that price gap in terms of the gamers that are the majority of gamers, and of course those pro gamers that do this as a career might have some brand deals and might also have some money behind them in order to get started with their gaming career. Those are going to be the people that are going to be on that 4K gaming PC and able to deliver that type of content to you. And there is a money gap there. There's a huge money gap between the Xbox Series S gamers and those types of gamers. That is the reason why, if you were that type of gamer, you would actually go to the Xbox Series X, because it's more capable in terms of its 4K. Now, you can downscale your 4K with an Xbox Series S, but you really wouldn't do that if you could afford an Xbox Series X anyway, because the Xbox Series X gamers, a majority of them, if they're pro gamers and sharing content with you, are already going to be PC gamers because of the price difference and what they already have with their technical capabilities. There would be no need for a PC gamer to really pull back so far to then do an Xbox Series S, but there are some actual benefits as to why a gamer might do this in the gaming industry. Now, Microsoft have really thought this through and have really thought about what type of gamers each console is for. What is the Xbox Series X for, and what is the Xbox Series S for? Now, I know for a fact there are people who have purchased the Xbox Series X and are not using it to its full capabilities and not using it for what it's intended for and not using the right setup with it. The reason why is because it's trendy sometimes to buy the best, the console with the most capabilities, with the least amount of compromise, with the highest tech specs. And it's like a car. Like when you purchase a car, you can purchase two types of cars. The car can get you from A to B, but one might be able to drive at 240 miles an hour in 4 seconds. The other might be able to do it in like 8. So if you get what I mean, there's a bad example, but if you get what I mean there, that's basically how the X and the S have that slight compromise. Now, the booting up speed and the quick play capabilities, quick resume capabilities are the same as far as I'm aware on the Xbox Series S. There's only there might be a few millisecond difference or seconds difference, which really, if you're gaming and you're in the flow of gaming, you're not going to really pay attention to that difference until you get a huge gap. If there was a huge, massive gap between the quick play of the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S, then you would pay more attention to it, because you'd be like, oh, when I'm booting up my game, it starts a second later. But when I'm booting up my game, it starts a second before you. And I'm like, yeah, but really when you're starting a game now anyway, it depends on the actual game as to if a quick resume is actually something that you really, really need to boot up very, very quickly. What's happened recently is we've had some game updates on the OS of Xbox that have given you sort of like a message during quick resume. And that is because there are different save files of your game. And if you update the game, sometimes that save file might be in 2 different locations. What I mean by this is you might have cloud saving, but you also might have saving on your actual console. Now, this has happened recently on the Xbox Series S during an OS update. And what happened is, I'm not sure if it was to do with the game that I was playing at the time, or if it was to do with the operating system. But what did happen is when I went to go and boot up the game, it actually asked me during quick resume, you have 2 game save files for this game. And then it gave me 2 game save file locations. It gave me the cloud and it gave me my internal storage. And they were both on the same date at the same time. So I was like, go on the Eternal. But I was like, why is it there? It was one of those sort of things where the game was giving me a message in the middle of quick resume, and it made me actually realise that I haven't been paying too much attention to quick resume in the first place. Anyway, it's been something that sort of just, I don't think anyone's really gone back to that as like a reason in 2023 to purchase an Xbox Series S. It's sort of something that sort of, it's gone on the back burner. The only people that might be paying attention to that might be the people that are like, you know, the difference between jumping from a previous gen to a next gen. So maybe you're watching this, you're listening to this podcast and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot that console has this in 2023, and that when I'm booting up my game, it will actually boot up from where I was previously, and that is something that's really cool. Now as when I've been playing on the Xbox Series S, you sort of get used to that change, and you get to the point of like, you just get really comfortable with it, right? So it's like you kind of almost forget that you have quick resume of a technical capability of the Xbox Series S. So it's very important to pay attention to that at this current moment in time, because it's definitely something that is a difference between the previous gen and the current gen of gaming consoles in terms of Xbox. Now, you could compare the Xbox Series S to a previous generation games console in terms of what it means as a console. And what do I mean by this? Well, back in the days of PlayStation heyday, the golden days of PlayStation, you had two different types of PlayStations. You had the PS1 and you had the previous PlayStation 1. Now, the PlayStation 1 was a lot older, bigger, and with, I would say, a bigger fan. It was quite a chunky console to put on your desktop, and the disc size was roughly the same. Yes, it was the same. The disc size was the same. It was just bigger. And then you had the PS1, which was the baby version of this, which came out a lot later with the same sort of capabilities, but with just a smaller size and no big fan. And it was actually capable of playing PlayStation 1 games. I had a PS1, but the PlayStation 1 was out a lot earlier. That is sort of a slight comparison you can make between the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S, but there is a huge difference in this, and the reason why there's a huge difference is because the difference is they were released at the same time. So the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S was released at the same time, and the differences are not as huge in terms of what the difference is between the PlayStation 1 and the PS1 was. It's sort of, there are some similarities in terms of, yes, making smaller size and changing some of the components. But in terms of the PlayStation, when PlayStation did this, it was actually updating the console from what it previously was. It was sort of like the halfway between the PlayStation 2 and the PlayStation 1. Not because the graphics were exactly the same and the graphical capabilities seemed to be the same, but there were differences in its size and its hardware, and it was sort of that sleek, you know, when you go from like an old phone to a smaller phone that has the same capabilities, but it's more minimal. And that's the sort of idea in terms of the Xbox Series S's size, and slightly compromising on its internal hardware. Now, the software seems to be exactly the same in terms of its capabilities, and that is why you're enabled to play the Xbox Series X and S games. Now, on the games, there's a huge message as well in terms of when you're picking your games online. You know that you're playing a next generation games console. There's no difference when you're purchasing the Xbox Series X and S games in terms of having that available on each console. The same games that are available on the Xbox Series X are available on the Xbox Series S. The thing that you're compromising on is your Xbox's capabilities. For example, you downscale from 4K, and you can play 4K gaming as well on your Xbox Series S, but it's upscaling to 4K as opposed to it being true 4K, if that makes sense. So you can play it in 4K with that 60 frames per second and 120 frames per second, so it pretty much looks like 4K, and it's upscaled to look as 4K, but the true 4K is going to be from the Xbox Series X. Now, of course, most of you that will be playing on a next gen console will not have a 4K television in your home. You won't have a 4K screen in your home, most likely. And this is because the cost at the moment, and Microsoft knew this when they were developing both of these consoles, the price at the moment for those screens are still going to be quite high and not something that everybody is going to be able to purchase. So that's why the Xbox Series S is definitely a top pick at this current moment in time, because most people right now do not have, on average, a 4K screen or television available in their home or wherever they are gaming. It's not something that's just easily accessible to the majority of gamers, and that makes a huge difference, and that is also why the price point also makes sense. It's sort of like, it's not a bridge console, but it's a console that is sort of the Xbox Series X, but just smaller. Right, so, and also the size as well. So when I done my initial unboxing, what I did do with the Xbox Series S is I compared its size to literal items that you could find in your home. The items that everybody has in their home, these are what I compared the Xbox Series S to. And the reason why I did this is because it gives you, the viewers, or the listeners in this case, an example of the size of the Xbox Series S before you could actually purchase it and get it in your hands. So you had an idea of that minimalistic size. The look of the console as well does look more appealing on the eyes. And this is because it has that sort of white, sleek look to it, which if you tuck it into a corner of a room, or I wouldn't advise you to tuck it into the corner of a room, but if you pull it on a desktop, for example, it's not going to stand out as a, yo, what's that thing? What's that huge thing? It's going to be like, oh, there's an Xbox Series S there. Looks great. I can see it's an Xbox Series S, but it's not taking up a large amount of room. It's also not making any noise. So because of the way it's created and developed, it doesn't make too much noise either. The size of it, you can literally fit it in a bag. So if you in a handbag, you can fit it in a backpack, it will fit. The Xbox Series S is small in comparison to most next-gen consoles that are available right now. I would say it's the smallest Xbox yet, and it is the smallest Xbox yet. Right, so now we're back on my Xbox console now because the update has done. It has been a while. It didn't take that long. Let's go back into that Apex Legends so I can explain what I was explaining to you. So I can go into the file information right now. The version of Apex that I currently have is 2.2.0.8, and that's the version of Apex Legends I currently have. I'm using Apex Legends as an example, and if I go into my game add-ons right now, the game add-ons that I actually have, there are only 2 add-ons, and it's nothing to do with those digital items in which I was talking about before. The 2 game add-ons that I currently have don't actually need to be installed anymore. And those 2 game add-ons were the Revel Supercharge Pack and Revelry Supercharge Pack, and that is literally something that's to do with the game file itself because we're in a new season of Apex Legends, so it actually reads doesn't need to be installed. So what that is basically because I have EA Play, I have certain things that might be available to me as a EA Play member, but not only that, it might be to do with the new season update. Underneath this, I also have the Xbox Live Gold Pack. Now, of course, because you have Xbox Live Gold, one of the things that I had as a perk was a skin package that was available that I got with the Xbox Game Pass, but for some reason it's called Xbox Live Gold Pack. Well, that was something that was also available as a perk, and I decided to download it for my Apex Legends. It actually goes inside the game file somehow, so it actually doesn't take up any room, and with the add-ons, there are no add-ons in Apex Legends. So I just wanted to use that as an example because most of that is a digital add-on that is actually added into the game file info. Now I can press X on top of those add-ons to see what they mean. Now there is information there where it's just literally non-applicable. It's just not applicable. It's not taking up any room. So depending on what type of game you actually are playing, you won't actually take up any room because what you're doing is you're updating the game file itself. You're updating the game data itself. So it might be in the cloud, which is nothing to do with any storage on your console. So because that is something that's becoming more of a norm in the gaming industry, and the cloud is being used a lot more in terms of your gaming, if you're gaming online with something that's a live service, you're not actually taking up any room on your console. So you have to really think about the actual things that are taking up room on your console. Now, if I go to a previous generation game that isn't a new generation game, that might be a difference. For example, let's jump into Batman Arkham Knight really quick so I can give you an example of a game that might have an add-on that is nothing to that will actually take up some room. So I'm going to move into it now, manage see it's actually quite a few messages that I get here. So when I'm on top of the file, you will have manage installation on internal storage. And then I also have a second message underneath that says manage installation on storage expansion card. And this is because some of the files for that game are on 2 different locations. And what my Xbox does is when I'm booting up the game, it's finding those locations and those things and loading them up all at the same time. There is actually no issues in terms of this. So if I put something for that game on the expansion card, no problem. If it's installed on the internal and it's separately, no problem. And I can actually choose what's installed. And that's something that's really, really cool when you're going through your storage as well. Some of these things, if you don't know how to do them, I've also taught you how to do these things on my YouTube channel. So it's well worth having a look through the Xbox playlist that I've created for you. So if there's anything that you're not sure how to do when you're listening in this podcast right now, don't worry, I've created that content for you to help you. So you can actually find the help on how to do these things on my channel. So let's go into the internal storage now to see what from the game I currently have installed. So you can see that because this is a different generation of a game, it's a previous generation game, the storage might be slightly different. For example, I have the 1989 movie Batmobile pack. Now what that does is it gives me a different version of Batman that is available as a skin, but it's an actual add-on, and that add-on is only taking up 581.8 megabytes. So of course, because the Xbox Series S storage is a lot bigger than that and there's no issues with that, then it's not really taking up too much room. And the game is actually installed in a different location. It's installed on my expansion card. Now some people don't want to buy an expansion card, so what you will have to do, of course, is you would have to go through your storage and you would have to delete things that you don't need. Now people do get worried when you have to delete something, but in terms of the Xbox and how it works, if it's purchased, it's actually in your cloud as a part of your profile. Again, if you need to recover your profile so you can get access to your previously downloaded and purchased games, then you can also find that content on my channel as well. I've taught you how to do this so that you don't lose your games, and when you're upgrading to an Xbox Series S, you can find your profile, know what to do, and recover all of your games and profile. Even if you've already gone through the initial process on your Xbox console, you can go back by watching the content that I've uploaded for you so you can find out how to do that. This is something that can be done. Backwards compatibility we also need to talk about. So of course, with backwards compatibility, some of the games that are currently available won't actually be available on your Xbox Series S, but some of them will. There is a slight communication that needs to be had on this topic and a discussion that needs to be had on this topic so I can teach you which games will be available on your Xbox Series S. Now, for example, I have Pirates of the Caribbean, the Lego game Pirates of the Caribbean, which is from the Xbox 360 era, which is available on my console. I downloaded it previously on a previously owned Xbox console that I had, but of course, because I have my profile on this new Xbox Series S console, that game is made available to me and I can play it right now. With some of the previous generation games, you might also have FPS boost. I've also taught you how to enable FPS boost on the games that have it available and how you can also check if FPS boost is also available, which goes into our next topic, which is the frame rate. So of course, with your frame rate of your Xbox Series S console, there is a frame rate that is the norm. So the normal rate of a next generation game, if it's optimized for the Xbox Series X and S, is 60 frames per second. That's the normal frame rate. There are different things you can do with your game at this current moment in time to prioritize things like frame rate or to prioritize how the game looks. For example, it's normally something like Fidelity mode or something like that will be given in a menu. When you're booting up a new generation game, you will find, or next generation game, sorry, you will find normally you will have a message on screen when you're setting up your game for your setup for your Xbox console, and it does depend on the type of setup you have as to oppose the capabilities that you have. This is why this generation of Xbox gaming is also really, really important in terms of your choice when you're making your choice on your console, because there are those gamers that will be like, oh, you need an Xbox Series X, but you might not even have half of the hardware you need in order to get that capability out of your Xbox Series X. So you'll be literally wasting money because you won't be able to play in the proposed resolution or have the complete right setup. There is a communication error there in terms of when people are reviewing the Xbox Series S, so I'm just clearing it up for you right now. So most of the time, if you have a screen that has a refresh rate which is applicable to 60 frames per second, then you will be able to play in 60 frames per second. Until then, you might not even be able to play in 60 frames per second, no matter what console you put into your screen. If you have the wrong screen, you can't do it because you won't be able to, the screen won't be able to present it to you. So what will happen is the game will literally be playing in that frame rate, but you won't have the refresh rate on your screen in order for it to even show those frames per second as well. So you need to make sure you have the right setup with your console, no matter if you're on Xbox Series X or S. This is a communication error that I have seen from other people when they're reviewing these consoles, but I just wanted to make that clear to you. Even if you don't have the right setup, then you, I mean, what you're gonna do? Like, so it's not gonna make a difference to you in terms of that setup. This is why this era of gaming is also quite an interesting time in gaming as well in terms of performance. So with performance as well in terms of the actual console, so what the console is capable of and what the console does on a norm. Now, I've played on my Xbox Series S now for quite a long time. You're talking years. I got it from the initial release. It was around about my birthday. I think it was literally on my birthday. It was literally released on the 10th of November, which was my birthday, and I got it on my birthday. So in that time period, what I did find was during the initial OS system for the Xbox Series S, there was issues that caused the Xbox to overheat. What was actually found was it actually was an internal software issue, and that internal software issue could be solved quite easily with some updates. So when you get your console, your Xbox Series S console, connect it to the internet and start updating, because there are some bug fixes that have been done since those days. Because in the initial days of the Xbox Series S, there was a lot of overheating that was caused, but it wasn't actually due to the hardware. It was due to how the hardware was being pushed by the software. So with those slight internal changes, you will find that your Xbox won't overheat. But if you are having those issues, there are some things that you can do, as it may be how your Xbox is plugged in, because that's a completely separate issue that was also solved and it was also debunked. And the way you can do this is, for example, if you rotate your wire and actually place it in the wall socket as opposed to a extension lead or a power block. So you want to plug this directly into the wall. Now that can be an issue because the wire isn't too long it isn't the longest wire in the world, the power lead, but because of the way the compromise on hardware is, it occasionally, if you're not getting enough power to your console, it can cause issues, and this can be part of why your console might be overheating, which is a completely separate issue to what I've just mentioned with the software there. And when you've done these few things, you will find that your Xbox won't overheat, and the fan, you won't even hear it. And there's literally, like, as well, you can't cover up that fan. So what I tend to do is I stand it up, because not only do you have that black grill and the front of it where there's heat that gets expelled, but there is also at the top of the console there is also some pinholes, and that is also where the hot air or heat is also released. So there's actually two places in which heat is released on the console. That is really important, and if you cover those, of course it's going to be an issue. Another thing that I found is if you place your Xbox on a surface or underneath a glass surface, for example, what will tend to happen is that heat that's expelled from the top of the console will actually heat up the glass, and that is then of course making that area hotter, which is making your Xbox overheat again, which is the reason why I stand it up outside of something, not covering it up, for example with a shelf or a glass tabletop. I tend not to do that because it can be an issue. Glass tabletops can be an issue for it because it retains the heat and then makes your console hotter, and your console's going to be like, why am I so hot? Like, what's going on? I need to release that heat, much like you would with a PC. So you wouldn't put a PC in a specific environment, and that's kind of the idea in which you need to do. But of course, with it being so silent as well, I mean, I haven't had those issues for a fairly long time. So those issues have been solved, and that's just a few ways that you can solve that issue. So back onto the storage now, I'm going to show you how many games I currently have installed. So I have quite a lot of games installed right now. I'm going to count them. I've got 1 Apex Legends, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. So I currently have 26 games available on my Xbox Series S console. What I've found is that if I'm going through my motions, if I'm creating content or I'm doing something on my Xbox gaming console, for example, teaching you how to do something with an app, because there are also apps that I have installed, not just those games, and people do miss that, the fact that you also do have apps available on your console. So as well as the 26 games available on my console, I also have 28 apps. So the app storage as well goes into this as well, because you're downloading that file onto your Xbox console. So I have 26 games and 28 apps. I do not need 100 games at one time, because you cannot play 100 games at one time. I get what it means, like when you have that there and you don't have to keep deleting and reinstalling, and you can have a fairly big game that can take up a lot of space. For example, I have Skyrim on here. The space of Skyrim at the moment, if I go into it, is around about 42 gigabytes. Now everything's got a lot smaller. It used to be a lot bigger, so that's a bad example, because that's really good. A good example of a large game would be, for example, Forza Horizon 5. The size of Forza Horizon 5 at this current moment in time is 118 gigabytes. So 118 gigabytes for just Forza Horizon 5. If you have slow internet, when you're downloading this, you're gonna have a wait, right? So you're gonna be waiting for quite a while when you're downloading that. What can be done as well on your Xbox Series S console is downloading in the background. What I do advise, if you want to get it downloaded quicker, is to actually pause your games. So when you've got quick resume, sometimes your game will still be actually active. So in the background, your game might still be ready to play, and when you press that game, it will do quick resume. But what that's doing is it's actually using some of the resources on your Xbox Series S console. So if you go back onto that game by pressing the menu button where you're hovering on it, you can actually quit the game, as opposed to waiting for that quick resume to be resumed. And when you're waiting for that quick resume to be resumed, it's actually sort of in a pause state that you're going to resume from exactly where you was. So it's still actually using the resources of your Xbox console in order to do that. And if it's an online game, it will then of course be using some of your data from online of your internet. So when you close that game and you quit it, you then free up that bandwidth for when you're downloading a large game, for example, Forza Horizon 5. Now that's a tip for you in terms of your Xbox Series S console. These little tidbits you also do learn along the way, but of course, if you're not picking up on these, I can also teach you how to do that as well. And that is just a tip for you when you're getting along with your Xbox Series S console, because it's going to help you with your downloads and when you're downloading and using the internet or data of your gaming console with the Xbox Series S. So as you can tell, there's quite a lot that you can go through here and quite a lot to have a look at. The price point of games as well has changed. Now, of course, you have your free-to-play games, and those are some of the most popular games that you can play right now. For example, you have Fortnite and Apex Legends, and there is also other free-to-play games like Rogue Company that might be less popular, but also still a great game that you could jump into today. These free-to-play games don't usually take up too much of your components of your Xbox console in order to boot them up, because they're normally in a cloud base. So it's normally saved somewhere in the cloud when you've got a live service game. You know how it works. For example, Multiverses is another one. If I go into the storage of Multiverses at this current moment in time, you're talking 7 gigabytes. So the storage of Multiverses is so small. It's 7 gigabytes. It's probably one of the smallest games I currently have on my Xbox console. 7 gigabytes. So in terms of that, you can see the direction in which games are going. If you're playing a large open world game, which is a single player game, then you're more likely to be taking up that space. I'll give you an example here. I just need to move my phone off that surface so it doesn't rumble the microphone. I'll give you an example here. So if I go into Hitman 3, now Hitman 3 is a sort of, this is also a bad example because they've also gone into the cloud gaming sort of category, and they're sort of moving towards an online live service with Hitman 3. But there are those downloads that come with the game, and you literally download each level for Hitman 3. So if I go into Hitman 3 now and I go into managing the game, it takes up 81 gigabytes. But if I break that down and go into managing the actual storage of this, you can see that for each level you also have a storage file. Now the storage files for each level, you're really not talking a huge space. You're talking 10 megabytes. The main storage is from this game is going to be from the base game, which is 79 gigabytes. The rest of it is normally add-ons or something that you've added to the game with the data, for example. So that's really to break down the storage on why you really don't need to worry about your storage, especially if you have an expansion card. An expansion card, the Seagate expansion card, which is available, is really going to help you there, and you can have a lot more games available. Now, without this storage expansion card, you will be stripped of the space. So there is a space compromise. It can be an issue, and then you can, find yourself very often, if you want to switch some games and you want to play a large game like Hogwarts Legacy, for example. Hogwarts Legacy, if you're going to the size of Hogwarts Legacy, 53 gigabytes, for example. I mean, not one of the largest games like Fallout, but it gives you an idea of how the size of games can compromise you slightly in terms of your Xbox Series S. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, you're talking 136 gigabytes, especially if you're using those new updated graphics for the game. So that's a game example of where it can really take up a lot of your storage of your Xbox Series S console. So you're talking a lot there. If I go into the actual storage of my Xbox Series S console to show you how much you do have for your storage, I'm going to press on my Xbox home button here, then go into my storage to show you exactly how much space you have on each your storage device as well as storage of your Xbox console. You have on your internal storage 364 gigabytes. On your expansion card, you have, well, depending on which expansion card you have, I mean, I have the 1 terabyte, so I currently have 920 gigabytes it reads, because you also have things like configuring files and sort as well. So that's how much space difference you will have if you get an expansion card, and can really make a difference. Now, on my internal storage, I've currently filled up 98.3% of my internal storage of my Xbox Series S console, and then for the expansion card, I've currently filled up 99.2%. I currently have 7 gig available on my storage expansion card, and on my internal storage, I currently have 6.3 gigabytes available. Just to give you an idea of how the size works, I've filled that up, and as I will go over how much games I've already gone over how many games I currently have. I have 26 games and 28 apps available. So the all storage put together that I have free at the moment is 14 gigabytes. Now that's more than enough for updates, but what tends to happen, that if you have an update for a game and that update needs to be updated, it needs to go into the game files, you will have to make that space for the update the majority of the time. So what will then happen is you will need to delete something if it's a very, very large update. For example, I had a Fortnite update. Even though it's a live service game, I still need to make that size so that it could be downloaded to my console first, so it could then go into the game files. So that is something that you also need to pay attention in terms of the Xbox Series S. That space can be something that you need to pay attention to, and if you're on the younger side of the gaming community, you might not be ready to be dealing with that, so you might need some slight help in order to get that done. And for example, some of the veteran gamers that I know, the older adult gamers that I know, still need that help in terms of the Xbox Series S storage. So it can be an issue, but it can also be solvable, and these little tidbits and tips that I'm giving to you here in this review of the Xbox Series S in 2023 is going to be something that will definitely help you understand how to deal with that, and what you will need to deal with if you are a gamer who games quite a lot, switches games, downloads quite a lot. But what will tend to happen is if you've downloaded a large game, it's for a reason, you're going to want it there, and you've normally got a Seagate expansion card because you already know that you're going to need it when you're downloading additional games, as well as those large games like Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, Warzone 2.0. So just to give you an idea on the storage there, those are the compromises that you won't really have to deal with too much if you have an Xbox Series X. If we look over the Xbox Series S storage right now, I think the storage, it's going to be a lot bigger. So the storage, you can get like a 1 terabyte. So I'm not 100% sure on the Xbox Series S storage. Some of you guys might be able to, chime in the comment section and give me that information there, and give the listeners that extra bit of information. But right here in the Xbox Series S, I can definitely give you that information right there. So back into the performance, because we were talking about the performance of the console as well, in terms of we've gone through the frame rate. We also have those FPS boosts, and we also have those previous generation backwards compatible games that are also available. Now, we previously did have a backwards compatible menu available in the store, in the shop, at the Microsoft shop on the console, but that had been removed. And the reason why that had been removed is because I think there was a focus on sort of remasters and new games that were being released as opposed to the previous generation of games. And there were some issues in terms of trying to release those as well. So I think it was a lot easier for them to just sort of remove that. And what's been tended to be focused on in terms of your previous generation games is finding them in your full library. So when you've gone into you've added your new profile and you started on a new console and you're adding those games, what will tend to happen is you'll find your games that you already have, or you can go through the library and Game Pass and find yourself some previous generation games right there. So there is a focus on that. For example, Assassin's Creed Black Flag is right here, but it doesn't have a Xbox One badge on it at all. I can download it, I can play it, but it doesn't tell me that it was Xbox One. It sort of just has a tile in front of it, and there might be a reason for that, but I'm not quite sure. But if I look at the game card, there's nothing that's telling me that that is a previous generation game, and that I'm not sure why that is, but it's an actual thing that I have noticed. So when you're actually joining into, you don't have the Xbox Series X or S badge on it, but it actually doesn't have any information on it that tells me it's a previous generation game. It's just sort of the game tiles there, but that's the way you can tell the difference because it's not optimized for the Xbox Series X and S. So the idea is to sort of merge Xbox gaming into one, a sort of, you have your optimized games for the new generation consoles that will definitely be in those textures and developed for that console, and you'll have those updates as well. For example, Assassin's Creed Origins is now optimized for the Xbox Series X and S, and you can download and play that on the Xbox Series S right now with those Xbox Series S capabilities and updates. So it does depend on what the developers tend to do with their games that they have already released and what capabilities it will have on the Xbox Series S. So do keep that in mind as well. That's why we tend to focus a lot on developers now and what they're doing with their games as well, because this will depend on what games are available in the Xbox Series X and S quality. This is what's going to make the game look that much better, and what I also pay attention to, and sometimes what I share with you as well on the channel to let you know a new previous generation game is available in Xbox Series X and S quality. Now I have noticed that Ubisoft do this quite often, so most of the Ubisoft Assassin's Creed games have been looked at. A lot of them have been looked at or updated or remastered, and you can find that, for example, Assassin's Creed Odyssey is also in the Xbox Series X and S category. Now, in terms of Xbox Game Pass, there are a lot of Xbox Game Pass games that you can have a look at that have the Xbox Series S and S optimized section. So let's go into Game Pass right now just to give you an idea of the games that are available from Xbox Game Pass for that cost-efficient gaming, because some of you may not want to always buy a new generation game from scratch because it might cost you that a little bit more, and this is why Xbox Game Pass is so great. So with Xbox Game Pass right now, if I go to the day one releases, absolutely all of the day one releases right there are Xbox Series X and S optimized. Back 4 Blood, Tabs, Origami 2, Minecraft Dungeons, State of Decay 2, and there's a lot more there. All of those day one releases are all optimized for the Xbox Series X and S, bar just a few of them. So they're literally just a handful that aren't optimized for the Xbox Series X and S in that section, in the day one releases. So we're getting into the genre right now of next generation gaming, and we're getting into a full pace now, into a full stride of more games being made available on Xbox. And there is a lot that has been worked on here that are optimized for the Xbox Series X and S. Psychonauts 2, Ascent, as well as Gears Tactics, and there's a lot more as well, and there's more on the way, and you can tell that there's more on the way. Ori as well, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, and there was literally a section for the Xbox Series X and S optimized games, and you can find this, for example, right here in Game Pass. I can see that there's the optimized for Xbox Series X and S, experience amazing visual fidelity, next gen frame rates up to 120 frames per second, and even faster loading times. So if I go into that right now, I can look through the games And you can see a lot of Xbox Series S and S optimized games, and these are available today. And there's quite a lot to go through, but do keep in mind that sometimes it might be that space that might be holding you back. So getting an external expansion card is really going to help you out, because you won't then have to worry about this, because you can quickly and easily delete like something that's very large, and then you have like multiple space for multiple games right there if you're not playing that very large game. And you also won't lose your data as well, because you have your cloud save. So when you get back into that game, when you've downloaded it again, you can pick up from where you've left off, no problems. And that's sort of the whole, you haven't got a hard disk that you can lose, and your game is always saved, so you won't lose your game. So if you purchased a game, or you have Xbox Game Pass, for example, the only time you lose games on Xbox Game Pass is when it's no longer available on Xbox Game Pass and you've deleted the file. So that's the only time you're going to lose any games, because you're not going to have it available. Then you might have to purchase it because it might not be available on Xbox Game Pass if you're focusing on games in Xbox Game Pass. So that's the time where you can actually lose some games there in those terms, but it doesn't happen too often. And you also, when you go into the Xbox Game Pass menu, you will see which games are about to leave Xbox Game Pass. But it's what makes it so great as well, because you can definitely try out and play some games for quite a long period of time before they are removed from the Xbox Game Pass library. It does take quite a while before they are removed, so you won't have those issues as well in terms of that. Now, of course, in terms of the performance, in terms of the games, when I was saying how smooth it is when you're playing, you can play to up to 120 frames per second on your Xbox Series S as well. So in 2023, what are my overall thoughts on the Xbox Series S? Keeping in mind we've spoken about the price, we've spoken about the performance, we've spoken about the storage and the storage issues, and we've also spoken about the size as well as the hardware issues that we were faced with as well. With all this in mind, what are my overall thoughts on the Xbox Series S in 2023? And my overall thoughts are, it's a very comfortable console once you have your storage device, your Seagate storage for your console. It's very comfortable, and you feel comfortable when you're gaming on the console. I don't feel like I'm missing out, because I do know that the other console, the Xbox Series X, and other next generation gaming consoles that may be coming down the line are due to capabilities. So it's due to hardware, sorry. So the hardware differences are going to be where you're going to be fine tuning to get that better quality out. And without that additional hardware, without those 4K screens, it really doesn't make too much sense to really update the Xbox Series X or a PlayStation 5 if you haven't got those screens available with you as well, because you won't be able to get the quality that console delivers, as opposed to the Xbox Series S, which can upscale if you are in between and bridging the gap between the Xbox Series S and the X. Maybe you're about to update to the Xbox Series X now, because you've got to the point where you're like, yes, okay, I've got a 4K screen and I've got this, and I've got the space for it, and I've got everything that I need. Then you would update to the Xbox Series X or a PlayStation 5. Otherwise, it's like, well, you might as well get the Xbox Series S, because you have that new generation gaming console quality, you have those frame rates, you have that FPS boost on your previous games that it's available for. You will have storage for your games if you get the expansion card, so you're saving money there as well. You have the price plan, so you can pay on a budgeted plan in installments, in monthly installments, so you can save money with the budget as well. And you can also jump into those live service games straight away, and you can update your quality step by step with the hardware that you have, with a better screen and so forth. So it's a really cost-efficient gaming console, even in 2023, and I still have a positive opinion of the Xbox Series S, but I also want to know what you think on the console. Let me know in the comment section how you think and what your thoughts are on the console. I have plenty, absolutely so much content on the Xbox Series S that you can find right here on my YouTube channel where this podcast is uploaded to. You will find a lot of Xbox Series S gameplay, so you can see the quality and what it delivers, and you can see the frame rate and the fidelity and what the game delivers. Do remember that when you're viewing these gameplays on YouTube, to click that gear icon on the video so you can update the visual resolution, because sometimes when you're watching on YouTube, if you're using a certain device, you might actually have a downgraded version of that resolution of that video, so you might not have the full quality because you might be using a low data mode on, for example, your mobile phone. Your mobile phone, when you're using it, for example, on an iPhone, if you've got low data, it will automatically on the YouTube app put you in a low data mode, which will give you a a video quality that is slightly lower than what it's actually intended to be displayed in, and it's not the highest quality that you can watch that video in, click that gear icon on a video and you will be able to see if it's available in, for example, 1080p 60 frames per second or even a higher resolution. That is how you can update the quality in what you're watching when you're viewing these gameplays on YouTube as well. So you can get that better gameplay quality and see what the game actually has to offer, and you can see there's smooth frame rates even on a device that may be stretched for bandwidth. So you might be able to see that, but of course you might have buffering. Just like when you're watching a live stream, many of you know that when you're watching a live stream you can lower the quality and slightly buffer the time a little bit, which will change the quality of the video, but it might make it more viewable for you depending on your data, your internet and so forth, and your device. Of course, if your device is doing a lot with your data, of course this is where it can affect the gameplay quality as well. So I have an overall opinion of the console. I think it's absolutely great. I think the Xbox Series S is a cost efficient way to get into next generation gaming. It's definitely still one of the top picks as a next generation gaming console for the majority of the gamers that are around in the UK, the West and more so around the world. It's definitely a cost effective console. It's mobile, you can pick it up, it doesn't weigh too much, you can put it onto a surface, it's not going to be a sore eye, and it's not going to be something that sticks out as something that's really like, why is it in that scenario. It's minimalistic, it's small as well. I've also done an unboxing for you that you can check out. Now, there are some really important notes that I need to add in here that's really important for when you're gaming on your Xbox Series S console, and it's going to happen as well on your Xbox Series X console. But you can fine tune your game in the game menu, and it's well worth doing that if you want more quality from your gaming. So in some games, if you go into that menu, it's going to make a huge difference in terms of how you can see your game being when you're playing the game. The gameplay is going to change, and that is what I slightly mentioned earlier on in this podcast, and that is, for example, the game mode. Now, there are game modes in the game that is going to change the way the game is viewed and the way the game plays. There are different performance modes that you can play in. Now, it's well worth looking into this when you're playing on your Xbox Series S console, because of course this is going to give you a different opinion on the console. There might be someone that's reviewing the Xbox Series S console that hasn't played in Fidelity mode. There might be somebody who's playing a specific game that might not play as well in performance mode than it does in Fidelity mode. Different games now can be fine-tuned in different ways. It's like, for example, putting a different card in your deck. The game's going to be completely different if you're playing a blackjack game with the royal cards, and if you're playing a blackjack game without the royal cards. That analogy might not be the best analogy for me to make, but what I'm saying is, if you're missing something for that game and it plays really well with that setting of that game, it might become your favorite game because of that. So when you've got that smooth frame rate and you're emoting in a live service battle royale game, and then you can see a slight difference in something, or you're playing in a Fidelity mode, and maybe you're playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla and you've noticed something about the flame and some of the ray tracing that has completely changed because of this. This is going to give you a completely different opinion in terms of the performance of the game. You cannot review the performance of a game without playing it in every single viewing mode it has. You really need to go through the different types of viewing modes and game modes it has in terms of the performance of the game before you start reviewing the game. There are some reviewers that I've seen that literally just jump into a game, they haven't gone through the settings, they haven't played with the gamma, they haven't played with anything. They might see a slight difference between the game and how it plays in performance mode and Fidelity mode, and they're just not playing it that way. And when a game developer has gone through the effort of delivering a game with different modes and different ways you can play the game, it really does go against the actual integrity of the review when you're just not playing it in that mode. If you're reviewing something and you're reviewing it in depth, then you definitely need to let that be a focus point when you're reviewing a console, because the console has different capabilities depending on how you're playing a game. So it's going to access different capabilities of the console depending on how you're playing. Now, I haven't touched on the actual controller just yet. I'm just about to touch on the controller because I haven't spoken about the controller of the Xbox Series S in this review just yet. Now, the controllers, there have been an issue with the controllers in terms of the earlier releases of the controls. There were some joystick issues that some gamers did face, and that was from a stick. Well, there was quite a few actually. One of them was something to do with the battery life of the console. Now, of course, of the controller. controller, sorry. So of course, when you're playing with an Xbox Series S controller, it's not a battery pack, so the battery packs have gone. With the official controllers, there are going to be batteries. Now, what I tend to use are rechargeable batteries. So, of course, this is going to depend on the quality of your rechargeable batteries and what type of recharging dock or anything you are using with your Xbox Series S controller. Now, that does go against the rating of the console, because in terms of next generation gaming, you would have thought they would have had something to do with the battery pack, but there must be a reason why they went for gamers choosing their own batteries as opposed to a battery pack. Going back in the day with the previous generation of Xbox, you would have your battery pack that you could plug into a battery pack charger thingy, plug it into the wall, and then you can charge it up for hours on end, and then you can plug that into your controller. Then you wouldn't have any issues. You'd be like, yeah man, can play with this controller, and there's literally no issues there, and I've charged up my dock and I've done that and so forth. But that's an extra cost as well. If you sit and think about it, you're gonna have to pay for the dock. People are going to sell the dock as well. There's going to be extortionate prices with the initial release. So that when you've got the scalpers that are, I think that's what they're called, those guys that literally go through sites and they literally just take up the whole stock using their bots and their AI that they're using to get the stock, and they resell it at an extortionate price. You was having that as well with the console, and you do have that with the hardware for the console as well that is needed. If something's in demand, sometimes you're going to have that happen. Now, there is new technologies to stop that from happening, and when the Xbox Series S was first released, we did have that issue where people couldn't find the console or couldn't get the console because the scalpers were getting there first and they were reselling them at extortionate prices. But your boy Anthony Allen did find a way of how you could get a console, and I did do this for you guys to make sure that I can really help you out. And this is something that I like to do as well. I like to help you guys a lot more with your console. So not only is this a review, there are also some tips in here in this podcast that will definitely help you with your Xbox Series S console and help you get through that learning curve, especially if you're a new gamer or you're new to gaming in a next gen console, because there are those differences as well. Not to mention you can watch movies on your gaming console as well. Now, in terms of the applications, because that's also something I have not mentioned, I'll be touching it on in a moment, but let's finish up on the controller here. So there are a few issues that do happen with controllers no matter what console you're playing on. Some of the controllers have issues, some of the controllers don't do certain things, but what's a capability in the operating system of the Xbox Series X and S is you can actually configure your controller, and you can actually change some of the dead zones of your controller as well. Now, there are some games that allow you to change dead zones, there are some games that don't. This also is sort of part of the deep dive, I feel, that isn't touched on by reviewers as well when you're reviewing games. It's like the technical capabilities of the game itself and what it allows you to do is also really important to the gamer. And this is because when you're paying for a game that costs you 60, 80, even £90, you want to make sure that you have the capabilities to do certain things. For example, when you're playing a sports game like FIFA 23 and each touch of the ball is really important, if I'm doing a skill move and the controller is not picking that up, or there's a reason why there's a delay because it's part of the gameplay, you want to be able to review this and be like, look, there's a button delay because of this, or when I've touched the ball in this way with the controller, it does this. Same with basketball, NBA games, or American football games. This can also be an issue as well that also needs to be tackled, because it needs to be made aware if it's a difference between the controller or if it's a difference between the actual game, if it's a difference between the hardware, or if it's a difference between the playback of your screen and the delay of your screen. All of these things come into play in terms of your game, and I think reviewers miss this quite a lot because they think that they have the best hardware ever, but it sometimes might be your PC is overheating. Do remember that Game Pass Ultimate also includes PC and other devices. Now, you can also do some remote play with your mobile phone on the Xbox as well. This is also available. The Xbox app is also available. On the controller, you have a share button icon. You have a share button, not an icon. You have a share button now. Now, you can configure the share button. I've also shown you how to do that. It enables you to either share to social media or record a gameplay and more. There are different things you can do with your Xbox controller that previously wasn't available on previous Xbox consoles as well, which is really important, and that also goes towards the positive feedback that I give to the Xbox Series S, because I've really thought about the gaming community and what the gaming community are doing. Now, there are content creators like myself who deliver content for you guys, and this is a nice nod to us to let us know that Xbox and Microsoft are thinking about us as content creators when it's a part of your career or what you are doing. That is also really, really important, and I like that new ad that right there, because they're also letting you know that there are other things that are to come from the gaming community, and engaging with the gaming community and being able to do those things on your Xbox console. For example, accessing Discord. Now, you can access Discord on your Xbox console, and I've also shown you how to do that as well. That's another video that I have uploaded to my YouTube channel. Well worth checking that out as well, because this is the direction of where we're going. Those things that gamers are doing throughout the day, you will be able to start doing that on your Xbox console more and more. Microsoft and Xbox are paying attention to this. Now, I would say that something that hasn't really been paid too much attention to in terms of being able to share directly to is YouTube. Now, there are capabilities to go live to Twitch straight away without having any other additional external websites to be accessed, and that's great. And you can do that. You can literally go live straight to Twitch. I feel like this would be something that would be great for YouTube as well. Why that isn't a capability with the new operating system, I'm not sure. Maybe they're not communicating in terms of that just yet, but it would be a great little feature to have, and I think that would be definitely beneficial for creators like myself who are creating content on YouTube, and that would be definitely brilliant for the Xbox Series S gamers that are gaming on YouTube as well. There is still sort of more that can be accomplished with the Xbox Series S, but in 2023, it's definitely a console that I do recommend, especially to get into next generation gaming console gaming at a cost-efficient price. Again, thank you for watching. Sorry, not thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, because this is a podcast, and it's I think it's like, is it the 4th episode that I've done so far of the A Video Game podcast? I think it is. Let me just double check. I think it might be. I think it might be the 4th episode actually that I've done. This is going to be number 4. If I go to my channel right now, there's a thing playing right there. 1, 2, 3. This is actually the 5th. Right, so this is the 5th podcast episode that I've done right here. So definitely check out those other ones as well, where I talk about various games and things that are coming to games or changing, gaming news and new things that are coming to the gaming industry, and things that we like to also talk about that is important to us. Those things are also on the channel as well. Check those out. You can find those podcasts of the A Video Game podcast. You might also find me on YouTube Music too. So you'll be able to find this on YouTube Music. So jump into the comment section if you're on YouTube and you're listening on YouTube. There's a comment section there for you to join in with the discussion. What do you think of the Xbox Series S? Are there any of the points that I've mentioned here today that you feel like I could touch on a little bit more, or something that you would like to learn, because I also teach you how to use your Xbox as well. Check those out. There's a lot more right here. I'm Anthony Allen. Thank you for listening. What an ending.